No, listen, we're gonna talk the end of this season to death. That 8-game losing streak. I think like even you put it on then because it's the timeline. Like things happen, and like the most recent one is the one we think about. But like beat the fucking Sharks. Don't play two of your worst games of the season against Ottawa, and you're in. Like these things happen, but we're moving on now, Chuck. And before we wrap up tonight's post game, we need the final edition of Charlie O'Connor's 3 stars of the game, leading off with star number 3.
Yeah, star number 3. I think I thought about Sean Couturier here, but I think I'm going to go Sam Ersson. And it's not even just this game. It's the fact that, over these 3 games, him and Travis connected were the 2 biggest reasons that it got to game 82. That game 82 was meaningful, and that game 82 was meaningful really up until the end. It was meaningful really until Detroit scores that goal. Apparently, I asked John Tortorella this as well about, did he know what was going on in the Detroit game when he pulled the goalie? He said that, yeah, they were keeping track of it, and that was a driving force as to why he pulled the goalie. Then immediately after he pulls the goalie, he gets told by it was either the video coach or one of his assistants that they just tied it. But by then, the goalie's out of the net anyway. So it's like, all right, well, I'm not going to rush him back in. I guess in for a penny, in for a pound. And then obviously Washington scores the game-winning goal with Ersson out. But I think it's worth noting here that Ersson should not get the loss in this game. Yes, he was the goalie of record. He was not on the ice when Washington scored the game-winning goal. So I'm not going to give any of the other stars to Flyers because they have to own the loss. The one guy who does not have to own this loss is Sam Ersson. He did his job. He left the game with the score 1-1, and they lost this game primarily because of factors that happened long before this game happened. The 8-game losing streak, all of the adversity they faced, the fact that other teams won, that other teams didn't give them the help they needed. Sam Ersson played a good enough game to get these guys to the playoffs. It's just things didn't break his way, and he ends up watching the game-winning goal score with him on the bench, not when he was in net. So for that reason, he's my 3rd star.
Let's kick it to star number 2.
Yeah, star number 2 is Alex Ovechkin. I know it was a little bit of a fluky goal, but you know what? When you're the best goal scorer of all time, I know he doesn't have the record yet, but I believe he will by the end of his career. It certainly seems like he's pacing that way. I don't think anything is fluky. Guys like that just know where to go to score goals. And the Flyers, as Sam Ersson noted in his post-game press conference, they entered this game down 1 goal. Alex Ovechkin turned this into a 2-goal game, and that meant the rest of the game the Flyers were chasing. They were chasing what functionally was a 2-goal deficit. This goes back to what we've been saying all year, and I know Alex Ovechkin is past his prime. He's at the tail end of his career. He is an all-time great. He is a difference maker. He is the epitome of high-end talent. He is what the Flyers don't have. And in this game, the Capitals got the big goal from the guy who is the epitome of their high-end talent. That's what the Flyers need. I certainly don't. I'm certainly not putting the expectation that Matvei Michkov is going to be as good as Alex Ovechkin. And I also don't think the Flyers necessarily need a player as good as Alexander Ovechkin. Guys like that only come around once or twice in a generation. But it does show the impact that even an aging great can have in a big game. And Alex Ovechkin showed up. He had the goal that his team needed. They're in the playoffs and the Flyers aren't. For that reason, Alex Ovechkin is my 2nd star.
It's just insane to look at how his season started. 8 goals through 43 games. Finishes the year with 31. That's an all-time great goal scorer right there to fucking find that switch. All right, let's close it out, Charlie. For the last time of 2023-24, star number 1.
Yeah, star number 1, I'm going with Charlie Lindgren. And this is not just because he had a strong game, and he did. He makes 27 saves on 28 shots. Very strong game. It's the fact that he had to deal with such an enormous workload at the end of the year. He played last night. This is the second game of back-to-back for him. It was his 3rd start in 4 nights. They rode this guy. And I'm not pinning this on Ersson by any means, but Ersson, at least during that 8-game losing streak, he wilted a little bit under the workload. I think it was an unfair workload, but he wasn't able to handle it to the degree that allowed the Flyers to make the playoffs. Certainly not all on him, but it's part of it. Charlie Lindgren, Washington ran him into the ground too. They were using him every game during this run. 3-4 to end the year. And what does he do? In the back-to-back, he has a shutout, and then he gives up 1 goal on 28 shots. Were they all the best shots? No, they weren't. But there's a reason why goalies these days don't play back-to-backs that often. It's because it's really, really hard to be successful and to be sharp on the second game of a back-to-back. And he did it 3-4. And he still played the kind of game that gave the Capitals a chance to make the playoffs. I was never particularly familiar with Charlie Lindgren before the season, but maybe the Capitals have their answer in goal, because when the chips were down, when the lights shone brightest, he stepped up. He got the job done. For that reason, he's my first star in this final 3-star selection of the 2023-2024 Philadelphia Flyers season.
We all silly like the mayor.